Welcome, everybody, to the Accounting Practice Operating System, How to Manage Work and Get Organized, brought to you by our friends from Financial Sense. My name is Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA. I have an accounting practice based out of South Florida. And I'm here with my dear friend, Don Brolin, who is an expert in Financial Sense. And we're gonna break down and pick her brain in terms of what are all the ways that she thinks about practice management software and how she implements her philosophy of how to run a firm into the software and vice versa. For the table of contents, we're going to discuss, basically, we're going to keep it very, very simple. If you go to the next slide, Don, please.
Yes,
So the table of
absolutely.
contents. So we'll briefly talk about what is the accounting operating system. So Don will give us her high level overview. I'll give you my overview. I actually have a framework, a 5 bullet point framework that I think about when I go shop for practice management software. And these are the 5 points that I want to hit. Everything else pretty much is gravy. And then after we contextualize that, Don and I will share some ideas in terms of how I think about running my practice, how she thinks about running her practice. We'll go deep into Financial Sense, which is one of the leaders in practice management software. And Don will show you how she does it for her firm. And then we'll be monitoring the questions in the live chat. And then I'll be asking Don some questions from the live chat, and I'll answer some questions myself. So Don, before we go to the next slide, I wanted to ask you, high level, how do you think about contrasting sort of the difference between practice management software, your accounting software, your GL, and then what we're calling the accounting operating system, which is sort of how we merge these two concepts together into one cohesive operation?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, a lot of us we think about an accounting system. We're thinking of a GL, we're thinking of QuickBooks, we're thinking of Xero, we're thinking of FreshBooks, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. That GL system is meant to be a place where we can find financial information. We categorize transactions in those types of systems. We sometimes do payroll within those systems, various things like that that relate to the accounting side of it, but not necessarily in a contrast when you look at a workflow tool, when you look at a practice management tool. Yes, you may do some of that within those systems. You may do some billing, for instance. You may do some of those types of things, but it's meant to be something where you track workflow. Where in the accounting system, you don't track workflow in an accounting system. An accounting system has accounting workflows, very different than a practice workflow. And I look at that and I say, okay, I don't expect to assign tasks to my staff in my QuickBooks general ledger account. That's not a thing. And so that's kind of how I contrast the two of them, but I also want them to participate together. Because if in an instance where I'm doing billing in a practice management system where I'm tracking the time and I'm doing the billing, I want that to translate over into my accounting operating system so I'm not double entering. And I think that's super important as you think about it. Or if you're somebody who's doing tracking time and you're paying by the hour, if that's the way you operate, tracking that time within the practice management tool where you don't want to have to like copy paste the notes from your staff. Let's say you're doing an invoicing, by the hour. You don't want to have to copy paste that into your accounting operating system. You want them to integrate. And so, understanding that each system that you use, each tool that you use has a purpose, that they're not necessarily an all-in-one. You don't have an accounting operating system that also serves as a workflow tool. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about those two separate systems and how I want to manage my practice versus how I want to financially track things within my practice. Two very different things. What
Right.
about you,
And I think,
Hector?
yeah, and I also think that when we say the word integrate, half of what we're saying is we want the data to flow, right? That's integration, right? So I don't want to enter the data twice. That's what integration means for most people. But the other side, the other half of integration is integrating it into our business operation philosophy. Like the thinking behind the work sometimes is more important than the work itself. For example, I'm pretty sure you've had clients that, buy QuickBooks, get it started, but then nothing happens, right? And the reason why nothing happens is because they don't know what they're supposed to do in it, or they have no thinking or basis of like how accounting works. So just having software with fields for you to input doesn't mean that you have an operating system. It means you have an accounting software that does nothing, or you have a practice management software that does nothing. So sometimes we got to peel back and we have to do some high level thinking prior to entering data and think, okay, what are we going to be recording in the system? What type of data are we going to be putting in there? Who puts the data? Is it our employee? Is it our client? Is there a mixture of things? You know, is the data created as an aftermath of a conversation, right? Because
Right.
you know, what we call the notes, right? The notes from our conversations. So there's a lot of thinking that you have to do prior to entering data in a practice management system. And then once it is a thought process is cohesive, and you have designed it, you have to design it. Even you don't have to write it down or put it or do any data entry. Design happens in your brain. It's just thinking through, visualizing what it looks like to go from step 0 all the way to the last step. And then as you visualize all those steps, then you think, okay, where does my practice management system play a role in this workflow? Where does my accounting software, my GL, play a role? Where do the individual team members in my firm play a role? Where does the customer play a role? So you start, after you visualize what the workflow looks like, then you start plugging in all the variables, right? So we first have to draw out the chessboard, set up the rules, and then we put the pieces. And that's kind of like what we think about operating an operating system, which is much more beyond just the software. And Don, I have on the next slide, I have like 5 pillars, like the 5. What I'm thinking is the framework that I'm thinking about what you need to require from your software vendor when you go shop a practice management system for the purposes of running your operating system. What are the 5 pillars that we have to have? So number 1 is you got to have a place to have customer data. And when I think of customer data, I think of 2 things. I think of what is the internal data? So notes that only matter to me and my team members. And what is the data that your customer is going to want to go back and be able to see? So if they want to see a conversation, for example, I know you do tax returns, Don, and I did 500 tax returns a year. And every single year, there was at least 10 tax returns that we missed a form because the client never gave us a form. And then the return was wrong and they got a letter. And then the customer goes back and goes, I gave you the form. And because we had an operating system that they can go back and check, they saw the whole history of the conversation. And they actually said, nope, that's my last W-2, right? So there's data that we keep internally, our own data, but there's also data that we need the customer to see. We need client-facing data. So I think of this data as part of the design. And you know, prior to the webinar, I was telling Don about my philosophy of the difference between the open kitchen and the closed kitchen. Okay. When you go to a restaurant, there are restaurants that have an open kitchen by design. That means the minute you walk in, you can see the chefs working. You see their faces, you see their hands. Now, a firm that chooses to expose all the workflows, it's an open kitchen restaurant, right? Now, an open kitchen restaurant with exposed kitchen or exposed workflows have to be extra clean, extra careful. You have to have maybe additional staff making sure that everything is clean and there's no food falling on the ground, because your customers can essentially see everything that's happening in the kitchen. Now, there are other restaurants that are different. They're completely closed kitchens. So you don't know anything that's going on until the final product is out.
Mm-hmm.
There are customers that like the open kitchen. There's customers that like the closed kitchen. And there's customers that don't care. They just care about the result at the end.
Right.
The point is, part of designing an accounting operating system is to choose whether you're closed kitchen, open kitchen, or parts of it are open and parts of it are closed. So I think of customer data as something that you design, you purposely think about, you're intentional about what is the stuff that I want the customer to see and what is the stuff that I don't want the customer to see. So I want my practice management system to give me control over what's the customer side and what's the internal team side. The next point is the integration of general ledger software. And we probably should think about beyond general ledger software as well. But for most of the time, accountants were like, does it talk to QuickBooks? QuickBooks, right? Because we know we spend so much time in QuickBooks entering data, entering invoices, changing the address and all these things. And we don't want to go back to our other practice management system or to a practice management system and enter the data again. Also, if we're already invoicing in QuickBooks, we don't want to invoice again in our practice management system. We want either having a linkage to a practice management system to go straight into our invoicing in QuickBooks, or for the customers to be able to see the open balances in their portal. So that's what I think about integrating a GL. And nowadays, I would say more for the last 3 years or so, more and more practice management systems are actually talking to the specific QuickBooks Online files, your client files, and they're bringing some of the data in so they can do maybe recategorizing on categorized transactions and that sort of thing. So when you think about integrating GL, those are the things that I think about. The third pillar, or the third sort of bullet point that I think of, is how does the practice management system work in terms of managing my knowledge base? So my internal know-how, my internal resources, my internal Google Docs that walk my employees through how to reconcile multiple e-commerce channels in a QuickBooks file. And that's an internal know-how that I'm not going to make public. So can I load that into or add links to it in my practice management software? What about like client passwords? Like that's a whole issue, like managing client passwords or client logins or client resources. Sometimes a client gives us things for access that only certain clients give us access to that and not others. So is there a place, is there like a vault or something secure and encrypted where I can do that? And of course, where do I put my work templates, and where do I put my tasks? Where do I track, where I am in the workflow, that whole thing. But specifically, templates are really important because, let's say, for example, you have a tax, bookkeeping, and QuickBooks training implementation practice. You do all three. Well, the tax workflows are very different than a monthly bookkeeping workflows. And they're very different than a short-term project to get your client, converted from desktop to online or whatever in QuickBooks. So these three types of work are very different. And for the average employee for our teams to like be able to make their brain switch from I'm doing a tax return to now I'm doing bookkeeping to now I'm doing training, it's difficult for them to keep track of what are the steps that I need to do in order to complete this work. So that's where templates are really valuable, because you can have a template for your personal tax returns, a template for personal tax returns that contain a Schedule C, some business stuff, which is going to be very different than just a tax return doesn't have that, or a template for a business tax return, or a template to amend a return, which is a different workflow than preparing a return, a template for doing monthly bookkeeping, a template for doing annual cleanup, a template for doing implementation. So the templates are where you kind of like peel back the onion and go into like, okay, what is our philosophy? How do we do this work? And then when you think about what are the steps that you take, what's the workflow that you take, what does it look like in the sort of customer journey on interacting with you and watching the work, open kitchen or closed kitchen, all the way to the point that you deliver the tax return, deliver the balance books, deliver the cleanup work, or deliver the plate, right? To the kitchen analogy. So you think through that, you design it, you think through that. And then once you think through it, then you make it official by putting it as a template with steps, with sub-steps, with ability for you to complete them. And then you have to complete the first phase to go to the next phase and that sort of thing. So that's what I think about when it comes to task and work templates. The fourth pillar is client communication. So we have so many different places where we communicate with our clients. We have text messages, we have WhatsApp, we have emails, we have, in some cases, social media, and sometimes they'll mail us something. So like as an accounting firm owner, that's the one thing that just drove me crazy. It's like, I don't remember where the client sent me the thing through. So what we want to do is to have a portal that's easy for our clients to log into. They know they have one place to upload things. But the most important thing is, in order to get your client buy-in to upload things, they have to see it as their own vault to go back and look at things. Because if the client uses something else, Google Docs or whatever, and they're putting everything in Google Drive, or they're using Dropbox, or they're using their own thing, and then for you to tell them, now you got to, take your documents and put them in my thing, that's something that that's going to give them a lot of friction, because to them it feels double the work. So the idea is to have an operating system, or to have a practice management system that has a portal that your clients feel that is very easy to use, and it could be their place where they load the documents. So if they only put the documents in one place and it happens to be your portal, that's the best, because you're going to get the most buy-in from our clients. And the last one is, I think it is mostly as a firm owner, is the work management. It's like, how do I know what our employees are doing? How do I know if they're being productive? Can I give Michael more work this month? Can I sell this cleanup job? Do I have the capacity to do that? Where are we in the process? I'm getting 7 different phone calls of clients saying, where's my return? Where's my bookkeeping? Where's this? And to go into each of the jobs and evaluate them each time to give an answer, that's crazy. You want to have one place where you can, high level, see the statuses of all your work and be able to know which of your employees are on track. Do you need to add more resources? Do you need to, retrain that employee? Do you need to help them? Do you need to give them more work that's more apt for the skills, or less work that's that they cannot do, and that sort of thing. So that's what I think at a high level. Can it also provide work management? So these are like the 5 pillars that I think of, when it comes to practice management. And Don, I know you have a slide on how Financial Sense thinks about the workflow. So maybe you can talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what I love about the way Financial Sense works is that it has thought through all those 5 pillars. It's thought through, how that all works. And some of the ways I look at practice management is, you may not need to use everything that they do offer. That's one of the things that sometimes, we've got these things, that the guidelines, and that's why I love your 5 pillars, because in every one of those, it explains the process of the way we should be thinking about and structuring the practice, which is something that sometimes we struggle with when it comes to workflow, when it comes to capacity and those types of things. So the way Financial Sense looks at it, with the work management, the deadline management, setting those parameters so that we know, okay, when you get into the office, the goal is you get in here and you're like, what needs to be done today? Maybe you get in on a Monday, you're like, what's due? What are the priorities that I need to make in my schedule for the week? And so by having a practice management tool that has at the top of mind the work management, the deadline management, that allows you to filter through the abundance of work that you have, and keeping it simple down to saying, okay, what is due this week that I need to be focused on, so that I'm not in panic mode on Friday? Because that's the last thing we want anyone to do. We don't want people to be working on the weekend. It also focuses on not just the work and how we've got to think about the management of the work, but are we able to find the data necessary in order to accomplish the work? So we think about, like, they have the centralized client information. I don't want to go to 4 places to figure out where are they booked? For us, we're all in QuickBooks. So there's no real secret for us. Where is their accounting files if I'm doing bookkeeping? Because we've just, in our firm, standardized, listen, if you're going to work with us, you're going to work in QuickBooks. That's just the way we've defined it. But some people have clients that work in multiple GL systems. So some people may work in QuickBooks, might work in Xero, might work in FreshBooks, might work in Zoho Books, could be different places. And so what the practice management tool has, well, hopefully has for you, and I know Financial Sense has this, is the ability to assign that information at the client level, which we're going to look at that and kind of go into Financial Sense to see what that looks like, so that it takes the guessing game out of maybe where they are functioning in their GL, which works out really nice. So that client information, that's all in one spot. You may be bringing in, new staff members, and you want to say, okay, well, I want them to be able to go look at this particular client and learn about that client. There needs to be a place where all that information is at one place. And then from the firm level, looking at the capacity management, if I'm, like you said, in the 5 pillars you were talking about, if I'm going to bring on another month, maybe a cleanup, I need to look to see what deadlines and due dates does Nicole, in our firm, what does Nicole have for capacity? Oh, it looks like she's got, well, the first week she's got month end. She's trying to clean up finish up the month end from the previous month, making sure she wraps that all up. So the timing wise, I can say to the new potential client, hey, you need us to do this. We actually have this situation right now. They've got 4 years worth of tax returns that need to be done, but the books all have to be cleaned up. Do we want that project? I need to look at it and say, okay, it's the first week of October, second week, whatever, I'm just making that up. So let's say it's the beginning of October. Does she have the capacity? Hey, client, we can do this for you, but we can't get to this until the third week of October at the earliest. So that gives me the ability to be very transparent with a new client, as opposed to me just going, yeah, we'll figure it out, which I used to do, Hector. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but the old figure it out kind of conversation, all that does is cause chaos within your firm. And that's especially, like, I'm just using Nicole as my example. Same thing with her, where she's just like, oh my goodness, I'm already buried with this. Now you want to put this other project on me. Okay, now I need to decide, do I want to hire someone? Do I want to outsource it? Those types of things. Having the client portal, if you know, a lot of firms don't necessarily have a client portal to work with. So if you need to establish a client portal, like you said, Hector, where somebody can go in and put all their stuff, what you do with it from there is up to you, right? So let's just say, you know, a client is comfortable coming into Financial Sense and they're giving me their documents there, but my permanent document storage is in Smart Vault. Well, that's for me. That's for me to say, hey, Tracy, make sure you're going into the client portal, looking at the files that are in there, and let's make sure we dump them into Smart Vault where we like it for the permanent document storage. But we've got to make this easier for the client with one place for them to go, because it gets to be too confusing. And then, of course, communication is always one of our biggest things. It's probably our biggest challenge, to be honest. People want to communicate in very different ways, but when we have a spot where we can communicate through messaging through our practice management tool, not only email, which emails also should be included, you should be able to capture emails that come in because people still use email. So we got to be able to get those communications and tag them and put them in a place when we're working on a project. And this is one of the things I do love. We can tag that email to the work. So if we need to reference the email while we're in the work within the project, then that's just easier for us from an efficiency perspective, having things in one place. And certainly automations. Like, I don't want to, if I finish something within a project, let's just use tax because we do tax. If I finish a tax return and I check off that task within my project that I'm working on, I don't want to have to go extra click and either type to Tracy and say, hey, Tracy, I finished the tax return. Can you send the 8879? Can you follow up? Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to have to communicate with her through Slack or some other method of communication with my team. I want, when I check that task off, it automatically assigns it to Tracy and appears in Tracy's tasks and filtered in a way that she knows that's something she needs to do right away. And within projects, being able to make notes and tag each other within a project to say, hey, listen, can you please call this client because I realize they have a new Schedule E because they bought a new rental property. I need you to call them and get me X, Y, and Z, whatever the case may be. So we can communicate within the project as well internally, which keeps everything in the project. So if you ever need to look back, we have a place to go. And those are the types of things as we're working through our day that we need to think through, Hector. I love that you talked about that, you know, these workflows have to come from your brain, and they should be something that you're collaborating with your team on, because it isn't just you. So I think those are just some of the things that we really focus on.
That's awesome. Yeah. So let's see what that looks like in the real world. Let's go into
real world it. Now,
Financial Sense and kind of see what that looks like.
Yeah, and I will preface the fact that obviously we're using a demo account. I can't use my own. Are you seeing my screen here with Financial Sense?
I can see your screen. Yep, perfectly.
Great. You know, I can't, I would love to show you my real life workflow, but we can't expose client names. And we all know that. I know that's a little bit frustrating because it doesn't exactly operate. A demo account doesn't exactly operate the way I operate in my daily routine, but I can show you all the features that we're using. And I want to go back to the pillars. So I want to talk about specifically, I think we start with the customer data.
Right. Just the client information. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what I'm seeing here is when you go into clients, you have a dashboard. If you want to go back to like maybe the first client screen, just the first client screen.
Yeah. So when you log in, this is where you land. We call it. You land here.
Yeah, you land on workflow. You land on workflow because that's where most firm owners are going to be looking at where are all my jobs, where are they, what status they're in. But we're gonna sort of go backwards and go, what is the first most fundamental information that we put, which is our client information. So we're going to clients, and then you assume that you go and you see a big client list. Now the client list has, and this is a customizable list, I assume, that you can add and remove some of the columns. If the little gear menu,
Yeah, so
you
there's a
can,
gear here where you can say, these are the things that are important for me to see. So these are
yeah,
the different options I would say that you have. What I love, and one of the things that I got really pumped up about was there were certain things that I wanted to see in the client dashboard when I first come in. And so what Financial Sense has done for us is allowed us to have this section here, custom fields. And we'll show you where that is. Don't worry, how do I create a custom field? I can show you that. But in those custom fields, typically, those are the most important parts to us. Now, for Tracy, Tracy wants the contact name, the email address, and the phone number. Those are her top three because she's either emailing a client, she's calling a client, whatever she's trying to do. She's looking up maybe some history, but she wants to see that on the main dashboard. She's looking up, I just want to look up for their phone number. She can search for the client and get the phone number. That's important to her. In the custom field area, for me, it's important. It's imagine if you're a nonprofit, you're supporting nonprofits, you want the year end, maybe, or you deal with people of different fiscal year ends. And that's going to be important to you because you need to know that. That may be a column that you choose. For me, I always want the entity type there. And the reason why I like entity type is because Tracy doesn't do the tax returns. Tracy doesn't do the daily day-to-day with the client. She may not remember who are our S corporations. So if I can tell her right on the dashboard, hey, go look up a particular client, Joe's Carpentry, she can go see if they're an S corp, a C corp, a partnership, a single member LLC, or a sole prop, whatever it may be, because she knows there's certain compliance related things that we have to be concerned about. So she can actually look at that and see that right on the main dashboard. Birthdays are also a thing for us. We're working towards getting better at, especially with our subscription pricing clients, which are around 25 at this point. We want to know when their birthday is. We want to treat them very different than just a traditional tax client. And so that happens to be something that's important to us that Tracy actually pays attention to in our dashboard. But I just like to point that out because it's really cool that you can customize this and it can be in whatever order you want. If you want to reorder it, you can do that too. So just thinking about how you want the information presented to you in its simplest form, which would be in a major dashboard. And we do love the feature. I want to point this out because it's one of Tracy's favorites. If someone calls the office, she wants to look up the phone number to see who it was. Maybe they didn't leave a message, but she saw a number came in. So she will search in the search field for the phone number to see who it was. If it's not in our client list, then she knows it's not a client. Maybe she's not concerned. It's just something that she really enjoyed. But what I will tell you is if you do that, and in this demo account is not done correctly, you see how the format of the phone number here is different from the format down here. In order to search, you have to have the format be consistent. And I will also give you a tip that if you already have a Financial Sense account and you've been utilizing it and your phone number formatting is all over the place, shoot an email over to support and tell them the format you want all your phone numbers in, and they will put it in that format for you magically. So we've had to do that just as a tip.
That's awesome. And I assume you can also like batch edit some of these things. Like if you select multiple
Right,
clients, let's say you select a group of clients and you can maybe group them together. So you can group together your 1040 clients, your 1120 clients, your
right,
monthly clients, your quarterly clients, your clients that are required to file the FinCEN BOI report, whatever
right,
it is, you create logical groupings.
right.
That way later on, if you want to just say, how many clients I have that do this? Like I remember doing COVID where, where all these things came out, the PPP and that stuff. And I was like, man, I wish I could quickly see which of my clients have W-2 employees, which ones were created prior to 2019, which ones were like, it just took me just so much work to like
Yes,
go and figure out which clients this matters to them. So if you
right,
start thinking about all the things that would be useful for you to group your clients by any logical ways, like all the clients in Florida, because maybe the sales tax changed in Florida one year, you have to email them and let them know that the sales tax amount changed in the state. Whatever it is, you want to make it easier for you to go back and communicate with your clients or get a head count. Sometimes a head
right.
count is important, right? um
Absolutely.
and also you can assign them. It looks like you can assign them to a particular employee. So if you
Right.
have like a team member that kind of owns that, let's call it, they own that customer, It doesn't mean they have to do all the work, but maybe
Right.
they just own the customer from the perspective that if something goes wrong, that's the person that needs to go talk to that client because they have the deepest relationship with them or something like that. So that's also
Exactly.
really cool. That's also really
Yep.
cool.
Yep. And you're right. And I love that what you were saying, because when you go over to this customize the dashboard, you notice here this one was a formation date. Exactly what you were saying when it came to in that case. Now, can we foresee those different types of filtering that we need to do? No, but know that it's available to you to be able to group in certain ways. And I
Right.
find that, again, more information is better. So to add your custom fields and what's important to you, those types of things. I love that they allow us to do those
Yeah.
areas.
And,
So
and one thing I found is once you build that batch grouping, batch adding custom data muscle, it becomes easier for you when it comes time to like, oh, okay, this new thing came out and I need to group them in this new thing that I couldn't even never foresee. But you've already
exactly.
been doing the grouping and the tagging and the mass assigning and the custom fields. You already got kind of got used to it. So it just
Yep.
becomes sort of like, okay, it's a mundane task. I'll just go do it really quick and boom, and you pull up the report that you want.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and then so from thinking about that customer data and what it looks like. So, and we, again, demo account, but we're going to give you some of the broad brush type of things that I think that are really important. So as you come into the client and interface that client, what I love about it, you've got your projects right on the left. So what are the open projects that are being worked on? And as we look through, we think about, okay, and from here you can say, okay, oh, I'm looking at this. Well, I need to do the 1040. So I'm always focused on the tax. Monthly bookkeeping is something that Nicole's always focused on, which is one of the key factors as you're thinking through all the different tasks that you may do or projects that you may do for people. And so as we think about what is important about this client, well, maybe we want to one of the areas I'm always in is the contact area. I think the contact area for me is really awesome. So if we think about having a married couple. So if we have a married couple, thinking about we have the primary taxpayer and then we have the secondary taxpayer and having their contacts in here. The other thing that I love is, let's say Adeline Collins here, she has an attorney. So maybe she was brought to me, maybe it's an IRS resolution case, and Eric Green has referred this client to me. I can add a contact here, and I could add Eric Green in here and put Eric's email address, phone number, all these things. And I may say here, maybe I'm just going to put tax attorney. So I know when I look at my list, immediately I've got his mobile, all the things, right? So let's give that. So I could give contact to the shared folders if I wanted to Eric, so Eric can access anything that he needs at that time. And we could add this contact to all active client tasks for that client, but we're not going to have Eric be part of that. But we can say, yeah, okay, so we'll save it. Now, when I come in here, and I'm looking up, I need to look, maybe it's an outsourced bookkeeping client. Maybe it is a project. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to put in Hector Garcia's team. Hector Garcia's team's going to do it. I can put that information in here, give Hector access to the shared folders, but really easy. So if I say, all right, I need to go in and take a look at what's going on. I come in here and I'm like, oh, let me contact Eric. So I can then go ahead from here and go and email him and say, hey, we got to talk about a couple things here and there. But I love that the contacts I don't have Eric Green and as a client. So in a lot of practice management tools, Hector, you have to add them as a contact. Then you have to add the contact to the thing, but now they're in as part of your database. I
Right.
don't want Eric in my database. I just want him as a contact for Adeline Collins and maybe another client, because maybe Eric refers work to us. But I don't want him in my client list, which is something that, and we look at the email part of it, there's a reason for that.
Right. And the drawback to not having it as a contact in the contact list is you have to re-enter, copy and paste the information in each client that person is linked to. But the examples you're giving, the probabilities that one contact is across multiple clients are very low. So you
Correct.
actually prefer to have a cleaner client list that doesn't contain any contacts that are not clients. And then you can have information like that contact information just kind of just housed inside that customer. And I noticed that there's an additional notes. So you can put something like, tax matters only, or QuickBooks
Right.
bookkeeping only, or, spouse that they're getting divorced, don't show them the tax returns, whatever it is, right? Whatever
Right.
crazy situation might be. So you can add additional notes to let you know what that contact is supposed to do, right? Like they're supposed to have information about this, but not information about that. So I like that too. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and it's really nice for like Tracy, if she came in here, she'd be like, oh, okay, so Eric's addressing the tax matters 20 to 2023 without having to Slack me or whatever, be like, what's with this client? Why is this tax? What's it for? She's able to really easily come in here and get more information without having to talk to me. Because I don't know, I won't be interrupted if I could possibly just not be interrupted at all, right?
Right, right,
Then this other area too that we really love are the client notes, right? So we need to know what are some of the things in a broad brush, not project specific. These are not project notes. These are just notes about the client. And so, I want Davita she needs to set up something for me. Maybe I'm just like, hey, listen, bank details, information about how to manage all the different bank accounts. I can view all the notes that are associated again in general with this client. Adeline got divorced in 2023, FYI, it's a married filing separate return as of this date. So you can view all the notes, you can add notes, you can pin them. So the most important notes are pinned to the top, which is something Tracy loves because there's certain things that, we want, and then you can unpin it. Okay, this is no longer that important of a note because maybe it's just an initial conversation that she wants to pin based on her conversation. This is something that we do more at the project level once we get to the project level. But if this is a brand new client, she had, a conversation with the client. She's making all of her notes here. And when it's time for me to maybe talk to the client, I can come into the general notes and go, okay, Tracy already talked about these things. Now I actually go into the call with some knowledge about what was discussed. And I was like, what did I look like an idiot if I go, oh, hey, what did you and Tracy discuss, by the way? It's not a good look, I guess I would say. So the
yeah.
dashboard, yeah, go ahead, Hector.
Yeah, I would say that one of the capital sins we can commit to with our clients as a brand, not as individuals, as a brand. Like if you want your firm to be a brand, is that the customer cannot feel that they're going to have the same conversation with two different people. The
Right.
minute your customer has the same conversation with two different people, you're no longer a brand. You're a bunch of people working together. And that's a huge distinction, especially when you want to maybe sell your firm eventually, or you want to kind of give this look that you're a much bigger firm with much more resources and you want kind of the prices to follow suit. Then that the capital sin you commit is, oh no, that's something you have to deal with Mike. You talked to Mike already about that? Okay, you got to deal with Mike. You're no longer a firm. You're just a bunch of people
Right.
working together. And I think that part of client notes, like preparing for a phone call or a client asks you a question, you go, give me a second, let me look at the notes. Oh yeah, it looks like you spoke to Mike last year about buying a house or whatever, right? So that type of stuff is it's just crucial. And we have a question here from the live audience. Scroll a little bit down. You had as part of the client notes, or you had something. I think you click on view all, and it says something about bank information.
Oh,
And
okay. Yep.
yeah, so like the question is, would you put like your client's bank's passwords here, or would be like another place to put that in?
Great question. So that's where the client vault comes into play. So in the client vault is where you can put your password. So we were able to get rid of LastPass. So we've been using LastPass for a long time. So when we implemented Financial Sense, we were able to move over bank account information. We're able to move over passwords. So in this case here, if I want to look up a routing and account number because I'm working on a tax return and I need to put that in for whatever reason, maybe we're going to do their estimated payments and set them up. And so we want to make sure we have that routing and account number correct. We put that in here very easy and quick for me to get to. If there's things like, let's use a restaurant that we have, they use Toast. So they use Toast for their restaurant, orders and all the things. You guys all know what Toast is. And so we'll put the Toast information here. So I can say new encrypted record, and I can say Toast login, and I can put the username, the password, and the URL to the Toast. So here's a client that actually owns horses. So that just happened to automatically come up. So maybe this is the horse tracking login for this particular client. And this is the URL and so on, put the username and password and save that. So now once I have that in here, I could click the URL, launch it in a new tab, and it's going to bring me to that website. And if I had the username and password in here, I could hit login and it would feel, oh, that's a create. Sorry, I didn't do that right. But I can log into this particular client's here under sign in, and the username and password would show up, which I'm not going to do because that's actual real information. But you see how cool that is It's just like the way LastPass, Password Keeper, all those password tools work by launching it in a new tab. And we really love that because it's just, you're working on a particular client and you need to launch maybe 2 or 3 different things. You're going to launch them all from the home base of your practice, which is Financial Sense. So really powerful stuff there. Great question.
Yeah, that was a great question indeed. Thank you for that. So the next kind of pillar we talked about GL integration, and I assume that's what that transactions tab, that little transactions tab in the top is.
Right. Yep. And you'll see here, it shows you uncategorized waiting for the client. So you can just click this here. You can either click here, trend or transactions, or click here and view all. And so here they are saying, okay, these we're waiting on the client. We've obviously asked them some questions. We're waiting on them, or things that are not categorized. And you can come in here. And that's when we talked a little bit about that integrated GL conversation, where you can live a little bit in here when it comes to handling the client's GL work. And so,
Yeah, and it looks like there's a share button. So that I guess that the share button is for you to send an email to your client and go, hey, send this to the client portal so the client knows that they need to add notes or they need to give us a suggestion or explain where they ate or whatever. So then we can figure that out. It looks like there's a little attachments button. So if your client can attach the receipt to that transaction, maybe they don't know what to categorize it, but if they give you the receipt, you'll know how to categorize it because you have more
exactly.
context.
Which is great. Yeah. So if they're attaching an invoice, like for us, it's all about the equipment or any kind of assets that are purchased. We want the document. We want to know, we want to see it. We have capitalization policies with our clients. So if it's a $750 asset, that's just going to be an expense to small tools. We're not going to capitalize that. So what you can do is let's say they attach the file. Then once you get the attachment, you're like, okay, cool. You can then unshare it because that gets it out of their portal. We don't want them thinking about it anymore because they've done what we've needed them to do in getting us that information. That's where that client collaboration, but also, and some client communication, right, Hector, is where we talk about that in pillar number 4, but it's a combination of the GL syncing as well as the client communication, which when you can have 2 in 1, fantastic, right? So that's another really great asset for you to have. All your files that are associated with the client, Hector, we kind of discussed that a little bit, where if you can have an actual folder structure that will allow you to have all the bookkeeping documents, for instance, and it uploads that's a particular folder where they upload everything and you can move documents around from there. And so it's another area for you to be able to handle all of that. If there's a particular project file, so if you're working on a particular project, they can be sorted that way as well. Again, and I think it brings us back to the conversation we had before about thinking through this stuff, because you can get in here and go haphazard. And then all of a sudden, 3-4 months later, like, oh my goodness, we were doing this all wrong. Now you've got stuff all over the place. That's why the thinking through is so important. But also understand, give yourself some leeway in if you do make some decisions to change the way you're doing some things, it's okay. Because there's always ways for you to move some things around. What do you think about that, Hector?
No, I think that's incredible. You have a single place where the files are uploaded. Either you upload them, the client uploads it, and all the pillars kind of merge together because everything boils down to communication. Like there are clients that feel that you over communicate. Like if you email them 100 times asking for the same document, even though you need it, the client's perspective is you're over communicating and you're just being annoying, right?
Right, right,
But if you just request it through the portal, and the portal is the one that's reminding them, then you're out of the equation. You're not the one who's being annoying. The portal's being annoying, but the portal's job is to be annoying, right?
yes,
That's what we employ these robots and artificial intelligence for. We
right,
want them to be the annoying ones, not the humans. We are the ones that hug and kiss the client. The systems are the ones that pester the clients, and that's strategically set up that way. So
right,
so we're not the ones over communicating, the system is. And if they call
right.
you and go, hey, your system sends me too many reminders to upload documents. And you can say, well, there's a way to fix that. If you upload the document, it will stop reminding you.
Exactly, right?
Right.
And that's
Speaking
true.
about integration, somebody's asking about email integration. So it looks like there's an email, there's a button up there that says email client. So I guess we can just basically,
Right.
if your email is integrated, like if you're using, if you can integrate Outlook, you can integrate Gmail. So if your client emails you and their email is part of their contact list, those emails come directly into that client section, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so again, this is a demo account. On my real live account, I have my Outlook connected to Financial Sense. And so if you think about, the various ways that you're communicating, so Outlook isn't enabled here, but if you come into the client's area, we'll go back to Adeline here. If my email was connected, all my emails associated with Adeline would be in this list here. All the emails between Adeline and I would be in this section. And what's even more powerful, we haven't gotten to the projects yet, but when we get to you could take emails. Oh, so they do have some in here. Fun. Okay. In the demo account. But we can take these emails and we can view the conversation. What was this email about? Oh, this is related to a particular project for Adeline. So I can actually pin this project. This actually had to do with her 1040. I can pin it. So when I'm so all the emails, so, I've got look at all these emails that are in here. These aren't all related to her tax return. So when I'm in the project, I don't want to have to, I would not come in here and scroll through all these emails to find out an email about a tax return. I would go into the project and we'll look at that when we look at the work management. We go into the templates area, unless you want to look at it now, but just so we can see that that's how it kind of works. So you have this integration. We can look at all the emails specifically from Adeline. And I mentioned this earlier when I was looking at the circle of all the things that it does. What I love about the email is when it is, again, fully integrated, that just happened to have some emails in it. If I come into this area here for the emails, just to talk about communication, is I can just select my client emails. We get a lot of emails, folks.
Right.
They're constant. When I come into the office, once I get, I don't come in and check email. That's not how I roll. But when I'm ready to look at my emails, the first emails I want to look at are what emails? My client emails. I want to see, oh, maybe they did respond to something that I had an issue with the 1040. I sent an email out and I'm waiting on this one answer. Do you want me to pull your tax payment when I file the return? I just want to know so I can file. Very thorough with the client. I'm waiting for that one email. I can come into just client emails and see if that's come in, or I could go directly to the client, the one I'm waiting on, and come to the emails here to see if they did in fact respond. And I'm not filtering through this is what we like to do though. And if you were, let's pretend this is our client email. So if I go back to let's go back to Adeline. So imagine if I come in here, this is my inbox, and I'm trying to find her email to tell me, no, I'm going to go ahead and mail a check. I got to spend 10 minutes
That'll
scrolling
take
through
forever.
this.
Yeah,
It takes forever.
exactly.
So that's the power of having a thorough thought through process. The other thing that I wanted, because I know we've got to look at some other things, and I don't think how much time we have, about 15 minutes, I think, left here. Hector, are we around that spot?
Yep.
So I wanted to show the resources section down here as well, because the resource section is really powerful. So if you have clients, again, we talked about the client vault and launching websites. That's one thing, right? We could also put it under resources if we wanted to. That's totally up to you, but I would suggest to you that you set a methodology. You either decide you're going to put all of the clients, I'm going to call them extra websites, for lack of a better way to describe it, if I want to put them all under resources, or do I want to say any of those extra tools like Toast or the horse billing site, I want to put them in the client vault because I want to save the usernames and passwords. I would be consistent and I would have it under the client vault. But the resource section is really great because if you have a Google Drive or you do payroll through ADP, you want to be able to just you want to go to your Accountant Connect. That's a resource that you use for that client because they have payroll. You want to have that connection there. You can think about a tutorial. If there's a tutorial that you want to have that explains how you work with this client or whatever. So when you're bringing on new staff members, they can go to the resource center. Maybe there's articles that you want them to be able to go to. Maybe there's a tax research tool that you use that you want to have direct access right from here. Those are just some of the resources that you can have here. I don't know, Hector, I don't know if you have any other thoughts about that.
Yeah. So Financial Sense doesn't necessarily have a system in place for you to build a knowledge base, but if you have a knowledge base via videos, via documents in Google Drive or whatever, and they have direct URLs, you can simply just link to them, and then your team member, when they log in that client, and that client is an e-commerce, a nonprofit, a construction, or whatever, and you have a particular set of instructions and step-by-step process. I'm not talking about the task list. That's different. Like, that's the template. We're talking about, like, how do I reconcile this type of account? Like, you can add links to all that. So that's really cool. So it doesn't necessarily have a place for you to create your knowledge base, but if you're using something else, you can just add the resources there and give a direct link to your employees for that. That's great.
Absolutely. And then of course there's other integrations that we have that we can set up. Now here's where we select the integration to connect them, but over here under the settings is where you will find the integrations and all the ones that are directly available, where you can, and there's Zapier templates, which is also great. So if you want to, like, I use Ignition, you want to use Anchor, whatever, for your engagement letters and that kind of stuff, you have the ability to connect them with these Zapier templates that are already established for you, which I think is great. And those of you who are Zapier experts, you can probably attach anything. I don't even know. I can't even imagine what your brain's thinking right now if that's you.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah,
so just know that those integrations are available there. So, and that's where we get that knowledge, the internal resources and things like that. So thinking about templates, right? So if we think of, I think we need to move to the template section at this point.
Yeah, templates are important. Yeah, we alluded to that, so we got to pay it off.
Pay it off. So setting up your templates, again, thinking through how you're going to be doing income tax preparation and thinking about who is going to be handling the tasks associated with, let's say, your template. So this is like a sample of a 1040 template on how are we going to complete the work. So in a tax return preparation, what's your process? You're, again, thinking through what your process is, who's going to be handling those processes. This is where you set up the automation. So Tracy says, okay, the engagement letter is accepted and approved. Good. Now the next step happens. And you'll see that's what the little lightning bolts are, that there's an active automation associated with that particular task, which again allows you to, when you check, and we'll look at how you check something off in a work and how it will move to the next section. Automatically assigning. So Tracy doesn't have to go and say, okay, I'm going to go assign, all right, it's time to prepare the documents or whatever it may be, uploading source documents to Gruntwork. So once all the forms are completed, we've got all the forms we need, Tracy will check those things off, and then it'll automatically say, okay, Dawn Brolin, you now have a task in here. It's your time to now upload source documents into Gruntworks. And so I know that that's the next task that I have to do. And so we set these templates up. Again, we think of them very, very, very thoroughly and purposefully and intentionally on what the task, and listen, folks, you don't have to put every stinking thing. Like, I'm not going to go in here and add, okay, I'm going to upload the source documents, and then once I'm done, I'm going to have a thing that says review the tax return, and then I'm going to say, okay, open up the PDF from Gruntworks for all of the documents that are there. Like, I don't need a task to know how to prepare a tax return, I guess is my point. I don't need to put the steps on how to actually prepare a return. Don't go too crazy.
Right.
I think that's sometimes we overthink.
Yeah, I mean, like this is the part where you go into a whiteboard and you draw out what the workflow looks like from beginning to end. You choose what's open kitchen, what's closed kitchen, right? What does the client see? What does the client not see? And then you draw the chessboard and you start putting the pieces in. So, like, if we go take a step back for a second and we just look at this specific template, this is stuff that you would have thought about in your brain first prior to loading it into scroll up for a second,
Yep,
Don.
sure.
So you would have drawn out to go, okay, when a client calls in and says, can you do my tax return? Okay, well, there is a sales call, right? And then that sales call happens and the proposal goes together. And then part of that sales call is you're using a different software for proposal. So you're using Lisio, for example. This is just an example on this list. So make sure you put the data in Lisio, because that's where you're going to queue up all your potential deals. The next thing is you're gonna write the proposal, get the client to sign the proposal, get the client to pay you, right? Whatever, again, you think about this up front. Once we have that proposal paid for and all ready to go, client has accepted, now we're gonna send our client the list of documents that we need, a checklist, maybe we send them an organizer.
Mhm.
Then we wait for the client to finish the organizer because we can't move forward until the client finishes the organizer. And then we're going to then double check that all the documents were uploaded correctly. Then once the documents are uploaded correctly, then we're going to start loading them into the tax return. Then after we load them into the tax return, maybe we have a second person that reviews the tax return or does a quick check to make sure that we didn't miss any documents. Maybe there's another person that maybe runs the alerts on the tax software, because many times we'll do a draft of the tax software, but we won't run the alerts because the alerts are sort of free e-file or whatever. So you think about all these things and you draw them out, and then you figure out which of these am I going to add as a task. Because like you said, log into QuickBooks. That's not a task. We know that we're supposed to log into QuickBooks. Go to the bank feed section. Wouldn't be a tag. It would just be like all the transactions entered from bank feeds. Okay. Now that implies logging in and going into bank, clicking on banking or transactions or whatever. So like you said, you want to think sort of high level, but in some cases, you may want to think deep level. Like for example, verify every line in the balance sheet, verify every line in the profit and loss that you can create subtasks for, like you have now. You can even create subtasks of that even one deeper level, which is
Right.
banking. Did you make sure that no unclear transactions look weird? Accounts receivable, did you make sure there's no ARs that are older than 120 days? Inventory, did you make sure that inventory asset valuation report matches the balance sheet? So you can go as deep or as high level as you want to, because that's how you have designed the workflow to work.
Right.
And then after you build the template, maybe we can go quickly into like what this looks like when it's actually assigned to a project.
Right. So we can even just use this particular situation here. And the template's a little bit different, but that's okay. It's irrelevant. Because you may have different, and I know for us, this is a simple 1040 maybe, where if it's a 1040 with a Schedule C or an E, there are going to be different tasks. There's going to be different things that happen depending on the tax return. And so what's nice about here, you're going to see how you can assign it to an actual person. In the previous screen, it just says it's a preparer, it's an admin, it's a this, it's that, not necessarily the person. So we want to see, okay, who are we actually assigning these tasks to? And we can see that over to the right. And as we go through and we look at this, we may say, okay, hey, I got to ask the client something. So I may go ahead into the client chat and say, hey, client chat, be like, hey, I got an issue, blah, blah, blah. Client's got to log into the portal. They'll see the chat because that's the way we train them. Or if there's team chat, this is one of the things that we love the most is like, hey, listen, hey, Sharam, listen, I need you to call about their 1098 INT. I don't have it. I don't see it in the vault.
Right. And you don't necessarily, like, that's the closed kitchen stuff. You don't necessarily want to show your client that you're sloppy because you're not sure if they gave it to you or not. Or do you remember the client even mentioning that they bought a house? Like that's the type of stuff that's like closed kitchen. Like that's
Yes, that's
team only.
exactly right. Exactly. And then if I want a client chat, I can do that as well, which is great. And it can be between. So if I just say at Sharam, or I say, hey, Jordan, please get us your 1098 INT, because I don't care that they don't know that, like, I don't care that they know we don't have it because they didn't upload it. We know we don't have it. So, hey, just get me your 1098. Or in a lot of cases, it's me chatting with Tracy, and she'll see, and just so people know, you will see the chat in the actual project, but you can also see the chat over here. So this chat will see, you'll see some notifications on, hey, e-file rejected, this happened, so on and so forth, projects, notifications. And that's what this notifications button will have. So if I've read all of my notifications, this will be at 0. And as soon as I see a new alert, hey, Dawn, somebody has asked you for something, it'll appear up there as well. So it's nice to be able to see that happen. And then again, we talked about, I pinned this to her return. If you all recall a couple of minutes ago, I pinned this email to this tax return because I'm making this up. This is related to the 1040, right? So if this email from Adeline was about this 1040, this is where I was talking earlier, where I would tag it to the work. So while I'm in the work and I'm working on this particular project for her, sorry, I clicked out of it. And I'm in here and I look at the emails, I know that I can just come into the work, look at the emails associated, and it's all going to be here. So if I I'm sorry, I didn't do that right. If I come here to the 1040 and I come in here and I see the emails, everything associated with this particular project, all the emails are going to live in there. And that's really key. Allowing me to have
Jane in
this.
the chat is saying that's a game changer because, you know, we have so much stuff gets lost in the shuffle because
Right.
it's not on the first page of your open emails and it goes to like second page or third page. And in this case, because a Financial Sense talks to your email and only, like you mentioned, only downloads client related emails, even if you missed it on your mailbox, or maybe you read it and forgot to mark it on read to remember to go back to it, it will be in Financial Sense. And especially
Right
if you
here.
take the extra time and you tag it to a project, then you know that this email specific for the tax return, or this email specific for the 1099, this email specific for the sales tax, and we're not confused with so much over communication. Because again, we could also get over communication. We get over communication from our clients as well. And a lot
Right.
of us think that's annoying too. Like clients just keep sending us stuff that is not related to the projects. You can't stop it, but now you have a place where you can organize the communication and say, I need to revisit this email a month from now, but I don't
Right.
want to have to remember in my head that there was an email from a month from now where they told me about something. So tagging it to a project, that's huge. So
Absolutely.
Don, we only got like a few minutes left, and the last kind of thing I wanted to look at is sort of high level firm management workflow. So this is the
Yeah,
screen where you manage all your tasks. So maybe
that's
talk to
right.
us about like how do we, as firm owners, how do we manage this screen?
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways, a lot of ways that you can utilize Financial Sense to organize. Now, there's things called tags, which are statuses. So if you think about what's the status of the project, that's what a tag is for, or the task tag, or whatever it may be. Different due dates, accounting periods, who things are assigned to. If you're sitting here going, I need to see how much stuff does Davita have going on? Oh, okay, Davita doesn't have much going on. We're good. I can bring on a new project and assign it to her. All things are good there. Or I may say, oh, poor Sharam, let's see what Sharam's got going on. Okay, he's not too bad. He's got some 1040, some bookkeeping, allows me to manage that information. So this view is able to be filtered. And I think that that's one of the most exciting parts of it. So we'll clear all the filters over here to the right. So once you start filtering, you're like, I got to start over, clear them all out, and all the work for the whole firm is going to appear. And this is where you want to start looking at, hey, maybe some saved views that I looked before. I know for me, I'm the tax return review girl. So I want to see any returns that are ready to review. Okay, so when I come in, this is where I live. When I come in the office and I sit down in this chair, the first thing I do, and I make it, this is again a sample file, but I have a specific view, and my view is returns ready to start or returns ready to review. I come in and here's what I know. For today, my priority are these 3 returns. I know immediately because I want to be productive. I know immediately what I need to start working on. I'm not going to my email. I'm not going to anywhere else. I'm not chatting. I'm coming in and I'm like, I got those 3 things to do and then I can leave. That's what my brain says. So this view is going to allow you to manage the views, filter them. Maybe I want to see what Elon Musk is up to. And I want to just focus because maybe he's a client who we do like 10 things, 10 different big things a month for him. We're doing the sales tax returns. We're doing, I don't know, maybe we're doing, who knows, all kinds of different things that we're doing for this guy. Maybe in this particular situation, we're helping him with his buy-sell agreement or whatever it may be. I want to focus on this client because one of our subscription pricing clients, which when we talked before, clear the view, client groups. So another great way for those of you who are in subscription pricing or relationship pricing, where your monthly subscription, which is how we operate, we want to group all those into one because I want to see what projects are specific to those particular clients. Let's say we've got biweekly payroll clients is another example. Show me everyone that we have biweekly payroll for. Oh, we don't have anybody. Okay, that's weird, but that's fine. Again, it's a sample file, so there's only so much we can.
Yeah,
Monthly
that's fine.
bookkeeping clients, right? So here are our monthly bookkeeping clients. Where are we at with each of the different projects we have for them? Again, being able to focus and filter according to, here's what I would say, what is important to you. For me, Groups of clients to us, our relationship clients, subscription pricing clients are number one. We have a view for those specifically. So I know what projects are not completed, tasks are not completed for those particular clients because they're number one to us. Why? Because they're our primary source of revenue. And so all the other regular tax clients, those guys come second. They are not priority to us. These guys are priority to us. So this view helps us manage the work, see what's going on with the various clients, but what our staff is up against. And so we use this on the daily basis on exactly what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to end it, Don, because this screen is fantastic. Like I just thinking through, like as a amateur software designer myself, I think through, like, sometimes you want to jam as much information down the user's throat as possible. Sometimes we want to remove information, and sometimes we want to be sort of very tactful about what's the stuff that people need to see. And I think they nailed it on this one. You got the client name, you got the project name, you got a progress bar, which is very visually easy to see. It says 2 out of 7. That means that there's 7 tasks that you can check off, but only 2 are completed. So it's very easy to visualize. There's tags if you want to do it by tags. There's also client grouping, which is sort of hidden, and it doesn't have to physically show you the tag, but the client grouping happens sort of behind the scenes as I assign these customers to general groups. There's filtering on whether the jobs are open or closed. It looks like there's an open or closed filter. There is snooze. That means that, like, I think that's really cool too. You can grab a project and you can snooze it and say, you know what, this client is gone for 2 weeks. Let's not even like worry about it. Let's bucket this for 14 days, so it's not like sitting there I'm worried about it only being 2 out of 10. The client's not even going to be back, so there's really nothing we can do about that. I love that. It's a very unique feature. I've never seen snooze in any other practice management software, so that's pretty cool. It's got team chat if you have unanswered, like basically unread team chat items, because those could change the dynamic of the status of the work. And I love that there's a separate one for client tasks. So it's like, what's the stuff that your client owes you? And you can click on that and go straight into the client task. I mean, this screen is fantastic, really well designed. They must have had a lot of feedback from accounting professionals, because most software designers don't think of all these things automatically. So I think they nailed it with this screen. And thank you very much, Don, for showing us that. I answered most of the questions, or I think all the questions that were on the live chat, and I asked you those. I would ask you for any last notes, or what is your recommendation for people?
Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, really thinking through what your needs are for your firm, and investing, by the way, Hector, investing the time to think through this. And I would even encourage for people who already have a workflow tool, whether it is Financial Sense, whether it's another tool, that you revisit that tool, revisit the way you've structured things. Are you finding it difficult to find certain things? I don't know, but it's never a bad thing to review how you are utilizing your tool, maximizing the tool, and invest the time to see all the things it's capable of. I think because there's so much that you can do, I think we miss a lot of those things that maybe you're frustrated over the way your workflow is happening. And part of that may be because you're not maximizing, like the client request, having the client portal and the way you can communicate with the client that you may not be doing now. But invest the time, folks. It will be worth it in the end.
Thank you so much for that. I couldn't agree more. I'm the type of person that has invested time in that, and it wasn't a one-time thing. I just realized that sometimes every couple of years you have to revisit and go, some technology has changed, the clients have changed, the type of work that we do has changed, QuickBooks has changed, or whatever, right? Like, things change, and your workflow design changes with that. So I love that. Thank you very much, everybody, for being in this live webinar. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Financial Sense, for hosting this webinar for us. And financial-sense.com. Check it out. The software is fantastic. If you don't have any practice management software now's the time. Jump right to it. If you have something else, if that's working for you, keep it. If it's not, consider Financial Sense as one of the options for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hector, thanks. It's always great to hang out with you, man. Anytime I can hang out with you, I'm always in. Take
Absolutely.
care.
Bye, everybody.